This is Mercy TV Wednesday night meeting, the 17th, no, the 18th. What's today's date?
Today is the 19th.
The 19th.
It is Wednesday. It is 7 p.m.-ish, and we are the Mercy Weekly Meeting. Hello, and welcome to us here. Give me a moment. I'm typing something out to our folks out there in the internet. Folks can catch the Mercy Weekly Meeting when all the planets have aligned through live stream. Go to our website, mercycenters.org, click on the Mercy TV tab, and catch the Mercy live stream when it's happening from that address here. When you get there, not only will you see the video, but you'll be able to chat with folks through that medium. Yeah.
I was going to mention, with the courtesy of CCTV, channel 23, 22, and 21.
Right. Also, folks can see us, if you're in the Salem area, you can catch us on cable TV, channel 23. We have our Friday show, which is always 7 p.m. live call-in, and then there's also the, it's played again at 11 o'clock that same night. There's our regular show, Film Monthly, and we show it 4 times a week, I think. And then there's our weekly show here that's also played on Mercy TV, on the CCTV channels. Visit our website, mercycenters.org, and go to our TV section /TV, and you can see all the show times for the stuff that we have currently showing on the CCTV channel 23. In addition, we've got a nice collection of videos that's out there on YouTube, which you can access again through our Mercy TV page. So folks, please check that stuff all out. Yeah.
Can you mention about, you can see the quarterly meeting of the OMMP?
Yeah, that's a good place to see them. We'll be showing them on channel 23 for a while. I think 23, not 22, yeah. But 23. And then they'll be available up on YouTube, and of course there's some live stream capture of it also. So I want to get some news and information out here first, before we get into other news and information for folks. And I'm working on bringing the story up here. Can I? The news I'm trying to bring up is that the Attorney General for Oregon State, Ellen Rosenblum, has come out in endorsement of House Bill 3460, which will set up the dispensaries, medical marijuana, or cannabis as we refer to it, dispensaries, here in Oregon. Further, in addition to the Oregon Attorney General, the League of Oregon Cities has also endorsed HB House Bill 3460 in the Oregon State Legislature. As many of you hopefully are aware, under the Oregon Medical Marijuana Act, or OMA, physicians are legally able to recommend medical marijuana to treat their patients. Under current law, because the OMA does not address medical marijuana facilities, there is no clear way for registered cardholders to safely or legally have access to medical marijuana without either growing it themselves or finding someone else to grow it for them. Folks can also currently get excess medicine by someone giving it to them. but they have to find a time and place and someone willing to give the cannabis to them. Over the past several years, approximately 150 medical marijuana facilities have opened and continue to operate in Oregon without regulation or licensure. These facilities operate in a climate of uncertain legality, and the absence of a clear regulatory structure makes ensuring compliance with the law difficult. HB 3460 tackles this problem by putting in place a regulatory framework for marijuana facilities, giving the Oregon Health Authority, or OHA, the oversight and control over their lawful operation, and thereby ensuring that all patients with a valid Oregon medical marijuana program card will be able to obtain medical marijuana safely, predictably, promptly, and legally. Under House Bill 3460, the OHA would establish a medical marijuana facility registration system requiring each facility to submit an application to the OHA demonstrating that the facility meets specific standards of operation. HB 3460 also contains safeguards that will help to ensure marijuana grown legally under the OMMA ends up safely in the hands of registered medical marijuana cardholders. The bill provides ample authority for the OHA to draft rules and set fees to successfully implement the law. I urge you to support HB 3460. Sincerely, Ellen F. Rosenblum, Attorney General. And in addition, so this letter was sent to representatives at the Oregon State Legislature, specifically Representative Buckley and Senator Prozansky. And you folks should do so also. Contact your representatives and tell them you want to see 3460 happen. That Oregon State needs legal medical marijuana dispensing, and folks should have access to this medicine, and in some cases is the only medicine that works for them. So that's big news, and we hope that it will be enough to get it over the hump here, especially given the recent raids. There was some raids here recently. There was some more about 6 months ago. It's part of an ongoing a process. This is how the authorities campaign. This is how the police try to make voters aware to vote no on issues, try to affect legislators and legislation. They go out and bust people and get the media there and make a big hoopla with more of the reefer madness nonsense. So it's up to you folks to counter this. What they want to do is derail 3460. You folks need to make sure 3460 happens. That's House Bill 3460 in the Oregon State Legislature. Which to allow dispensaries of medical cannabis or marijuana to happen here in Oregon. That's some big local news for folks. We will keep you posted on the folks that were raided, and each and every opportunity for folks to show up at their trials, to offer raid support for the facilities that were busted, and if it's unfortunately necessary, also prison support. If they folks end up in the prison, what we can do to take care of their families, take care of their places, and get them out of the pokey. One thing we can do at this point is to tell everybody about it, raise the level of buzz on the story about the folks being busted. We can hopefully affect people that may end up serving on the jury there. A jury nullification wouldn't be bad. At least a jury to find not guilty, to find the reasons there. I'm sure the defense will do their best to give them adequate reasons to find these folks not guilty. Another thing that can help out is funding. Try and donate to the legal defense funds for these folks here. Find out more about the raids and what you can do to help the activists that were raided. And they were activists. I know their authorities going to try and spin these folks as drug dealers down at the schoolyard every day, injecting marijuana into kids' veins and nonsense like that. Folks just have to say no to this reefer madness, and do so by contacting your representatives and telling them we need 3460 to prevent this kind of nonsense. Also, letters to the editor to let your friends and neighbors know about the issue, about the fact that they're raiding medical cannabis activists, places that, as far as we know, were in compliance. So that the actions here are really purely just hassling of them because they can, because it beats working for a living, all those things. To find out more about the bust, all the details and stories, of course, go to mercycenters.org. We have the story there at the top. If you can't find what you're looking for, please send us an email and we'll send you a link right to that spot. So, some more news and information. Here's an interesting story from a unusual source. From Tabriz, Iran. Hemp seed oil associated with improved clinical and immunological parameters in multiple sclerosis patients. The consumption of hemp seed nutritional oil in conjunction with the intake of evening primrose oils and a restricted diet high in non-natured and hot-natured foods such as pepper and low in saturated fats and sugars is associated with a significant improvement in symptom management and immunological characteristics in subjects with multiple sclerosis or MS, according to a clinical trial data published in the current issue of the scientific journal BioImpacts. Researchers at the Tabriz University of Medical Sciences in Iran assessed the impact of hemp seed oil, evening primrose oils, and a restricted diet in 23 patients diagnosed with relapsing remitting MS. They reported that participants in the study's completion were healthier in comparison to baseline and that clinical and immunological parameters showed improvement in the patients after the intervention. Authors acknowledged that hemp seed oil possesses potent antioxidative properties and also likely axon-specific signaling pathways that regulate inflammatory responses, two characteristics that would presumably make it beneficial in the treatment of MS. Authors concluded, after 6 months, significant improvements in the extended disability status score were found. Our data demonstrated that the co-supplemented hemp seed and evening primrose oils with hot-natured diet intervention may decrease the risk of developing MS. Previously published clinical trials assessed the impact of inhaled cannabis and extracted organic cannabinoids in patients with MS, have demonstrated that plant cannabinoids can alleviate disease symptoms such as involuntary spasticity, neuropathy, and bladder dysfunction, and in some cases may actually moderate disease progression. Nonetheless, the National MS Society shares little enthusiasm for the therapeutic use of either cannabis or cannabis-derived products as a treatment option for MS patients, stating on its website, based on the studies to date and the fact that long-term use of marijuana may be associated with significant serious side effects, it is the opinion of the National Multiple Sclerosis Society's Medical Advisory Board that there are currently insufficient data to recommend marijuana or its derivatives as a treatment for MS symptoms. For more information, contact Paul Armentano with NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, at paul@normal.org. Full text of the study, Association of Expanded Disability Status Scale, and cytokines after intervention with co-supplemented hemp seed on multiple sclerosis patients appears in BioImpacts. Significant serious side effects. Sounds like reefer madness there by the MS Society. But that's their call, I suppose. Have to be up to you, MS people, to get them to see the light. Meanwhile, the Michigan Supreme Court rules that Medical Marijuana Act exempts patients from the zero tolerance per se driving law. Well, there's some good news. In Lansing, Michigan, the Michigan Supreme Court has determined that state-authorized medical cannabis patients possess legal protections from criminal prosecution in cases involving the internal possession of THC while driving. In a unanimous opinion, the court determined that patients who are compliant with the Medical Marijuana Act, the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act, may not be criminally convicted of being under the influence absent evidence of behavioral impairment. Michigan traffic safety laws classify the operation of a motor vehicle with any amount of THC in one system to be a criminal offense, regardless of whether or not they are impaired by the substance. So that's the basis of the zero tolerance per se laws. If you any amount, you're impaired. Not medically or scientifically based. Again, a purely punitive item, and it's great that the Michigan Supreme Court recognizes this. The Michigan Vehicle Code zero tolerance provision, which is inconsistent with the MMMA, does not apply to the medical use of marijuana, the court ruled. If defendant is shown to have been under the influence of marijuana, then the MMMA's protections will not apply, and the prosecution may seek to convict defendant under any statute of which he was in violation, including MCL 257.625, parentheses 8. The state's zero tolerance per se drug law remains applicable to non-patients. Under these types of traffic safety laws, motorists are guilty per se, in fact, of a criminal traffic safety violation if they engage in the act of driving while detectable levels of certain controlled substances, or in some cases their inert metabolites or byproducts, are present in the defendant's blood or urine. Proof of actual impairment is not a requirement for a conviction under such laws. So if you test positive, bang, they got you. 10 states, Arizona, Delaware, Georgia, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Michigan, Rhode Island, Utah, and Wisconsin, impose zero tolerance per se thresholds for the presence of cannabinoids and or their metabolites. State-authorized medical cannabis patients in Arizona and Rhode Island are exempt by statute from prosecution under these per se statutes, unless the state can prove additional evidence of psychomotor impairment. In May, Oklahoma lawmakers also approved a zero tolerance per se legislation, House Bill 1441, criminalizing the presence of THC and its metabolites in a driver's blood or urine. That law goes into effect on October 1st, 2013. 5 additional states impose non-zero tolerant per se thresholds for cannabinoids in blood. Montana, 5 nanograms per milliliter. Their law takes effect on October 1st, 2013. Pennsylvania has a 1 nanogram per milliliter limit. Ohio is 2 nanograms per milliliter. Nevada, 2 nanograms per milliliter. And Washington, which has a 5 nanogram per milliliter limit. Non-zero tolerant per se threshold. If you're over 5 nanograms in Washington State, they'll charge you with a DUI MJ. Last month, Colorado lawmakers also approved legislation, effective as of July 1st, 2013, stating that the presence of THC blood levels above the 5 nanogram milliliter gives rise to permissible inference that the defendant was under the influence. However, according to the United States National Highway Transportation and Safety Administration, it is difficult to establish a relationship between a person's THC blood or plasma concentration and performance impairing effects. It is inadvisable to try and predict effects based on blood THC concentrations alone. In addition, a 2013 academic review of per se drug driving laws and their impact on road safety found that there is no evidence that per se drug driving laws reduce traffic fatalities. So, we're hoping that we will see a move to have the test for impairment by cannabis or marijuana involves a test of their psychomotor skills and whether or not you're truly impaired, again, as opposed to some reading on a scale which doesn't actually reflect that impairment. The problem with it is that we're suffering under some propaganda here. And it's no accident that a majority of folks believe that individuals under the influence of cannabis is like being drunk. And that's not true. You don't have the same effect on your psychomotor skills and functions that you do with the two substances. So that comparison is way off base. And unfortunately is a key element in the setting of these per se zero tolerance driving laws. Here's a study that may not be much of a surprise to some folks. The black arrest rate for marijuana offenses is 4 times that of white folks. Is that a shock to anybody? Anybody? Yeah, I didn't think so. Not to me. In Colorado, the governor signs first in the nation legislation authorizing retail cannabis production and sales. Woo-hoo! I think that's going to boost Colorado's tourism just a little bit there. Democratic Governor John Hickenlooper has signed legislation into law regulating the commercial production and retail selling of marijuana to those age 21 or older. Colorado is the first state to approve regulations authorizing a legal cannabis market for adult consumers. State licensed cannabis retailers are expected to be approved under the new law by early 2014. Marijuana retailers must be Colorado residents. Cannabis sales will be permitted to anyone over age 21, including non-residents. So yeah, folks, vacation there. Not only will you not get busted, but you might be able to find yourself some there. A majority of Colorado voters will decide on proposed tax rates for commercial cannabis production and retail sales this fall. Last November, a majority of Colorado voters approved Amendment 64, which legalized the adult possession and cultivation of limited quantities of marijuana or cannabis, and tasked the state with establishing regulations for the plant's retail production and sale of cannabis to the public. So there is hopefully something that will affect Oregon and affect it in a way that Oregon legislatures will see the funding there and will move to that, as opposed to continually jacking the patient fees and screwing those poor folks. More good news. Nevada legislators approve measure to allow for medical cannabis dispensing operations. Lawmakers gave final approval this week to legislation, Senate Bill 374, which allows for the establishment of licensed facilities to dispense cannabis to state qualified patients in Nevada. The measure passed with 2/3 majorities in both legislative chambers, and now awaits action from Republican Governor Brian Sandoval, who has acknowledged that he is open to the idea of regulating medical cannabis dispensaries. If signed into law, SB 374 would establish rules and regulations for the establishment of up to 66 not-for-profit medical marijuana dispensaries. Arizona, Colorado, New Jersey, Maine, and New Mexico have operational state-licensed medical cannabis dispensaries. Similar dispensary outlets are in the process of opening in Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Vermont, and Washington, D.C. Voters enacted their medical cannabis legislation in the year 2000 to allow for physician-authorized patients to consume and grow cannabis. However, the law does not provide for facilities where authorized patients may obtain their medical cannabis, especially if they've just got their card. It's going to take 2 to 3 months to grow, so they can grow themselves. That's great, but and also if they're terminal, if they don't have that much time, they need an alternative. They need someplace to go now, or they have a crop failure. You know, something goes wrong. There's a lot of reasons, good reasons, why there should be medical cannabis dispensaries. And the only reason for not doing it is reefer madness. Unfortunately, the law in Nevada does not currently provide for facilities where authorized patients may obtain medical cannabis. Approximately 3,800 Nevadans are presently authorized to grow and or consume cannabis under state law. So good news for Nevada. We don't know, I don't think there's reciprocity between Nevada and Oregon, so Oregon card holders won't be able to go there and take advantage of the dispensaries in Nevada. More good news, if you didn't catch us earlier, in Oregon, we've added PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder to the list of qualifying conditions. That was Senate Bill 281. The bill expands the state's existing medical marijuana program, initially enacted by voters in 1998, to include post-traumatic stress as a state-qualified illness for which marijuana may be recognized. To date, only 3 states, Connecticut, Delaware, and New Mexico, specifically allow for the use of cannabis to treat symptoms of post-traumatic stress. Just a note, in addition, California and Washington have laws such that the physician can give you your card for a condition even though it's not on the primary list of qualifying conditions. So there are folks that use cannabis for their PTSD in Oregon and California, I mean not Oregon, but Washington State and California, because there is that clause stating that the doctor may dictate a condition if he so feels. Clinical trial data published in the May issue of the journal Molecular Psychiatry theorized that the cannabinoid-based therapies would likely comprise the next generation of evidence-based treatments for PTSD. For more information on the Oregon medical marijuana current list of qualifying conditions, visit our website at mercycenters.org. Here's a study that says student drug testing programs are linked to spikes in hard drug use. Schools that institute student drug testing programs are likely to experience a rise of student consumptions of so-called hard drugs, according to observational trial data published this month in the Journal of Adolescent Health. Researchers at the University of Michigan Institute for Social Research have analyzed the impact of student drug testing programs in some 250,000 high school and middle school students over a 14-year period. Investigators reported that random drug testing programs of the student body, as well as programs specifically targeting student athletes, were associated with a moderately lower marijuana use, but cautioned that drug testing programs overall were associated with an increased use of illicit drugs other than marijuana. An estimated 14% of middle school students and 28% of U.S. high school students are now subject to some form of drug testing. Urinalysis, the most common form of student drug testing, screens for the presence of inert drug metabolites, breakdown products, not the actual parent drug. Because marijuana's primary metabolite, carboxy-THC, is fat-soluble, it may be present in urine for days, weeks, or in some cases even months after past use. This is why the DUI laws, the per se zero tolerance, are so horribly wrong. They're looking for things that aren't, again, that's not a true indication of impairment here. By contrast, most other illicit drug metabolites are water-soluble and will exit the body within a matter of hours. Authors of the study speculated that students are subjected to drug screens were switching from cannabis to other, harder, illicit drugs that possess shorter detection times. Random student drug testing among the general high school student population, as well as middle and high school subgroups targeted for testing, was associated with a moderately lower marijuana use. However, most forms of testing were associated with moderately higher use of other illicit drugs, particularly in high school, authors concluded. These findings raise the question of whether student drug testing is worth this apparent trade-off. Commenting on the findings, the study's lead author affirmed that it's clear that drug testing is not providing the solution for substance use prevention that its advocates claim. Previous assessments of student drug testing programs have reported that those subjected to such programs are also no less likely to report consuming illicit drugs, tobacco, or alcohol than their peers. This is similar to a situation that was discovered in Alaska during work on the pipeline. The attempts to drug test to, quote, clean them up, forced all the workers to these harder, more dangerous drugs, certainly bigger health impacts and other things, because, again, it was detectable as cannabis was. So to avoid getting in trouble, they switched to harder drugs. So I think the reverse of what you're trying to accomplish was done here. Again, courtesy of the drug war. But it's up to you folks to relay these stories to your legislators, to other leaders, and to, by that means, get change, effective change, real change, to our system here. Well, hello there.
Hello.
We do have a visitor here. That's nice.
Do you have any visitors on your internet site?
I don't know. Let's go check and see if there's a comment or something. No, just the one. That's probably me. Those folks next door, I don't know. We can someone go rattle their cage and see if they can tune us up. Hopefully the sound is coming through okay.
I can hear you good.
So folks can hear about how most Americans back industrial hemp cultivation. 56% of Americans support legalizing the production of industrial hemp. Probably more if they knew what the question was. They probably think it's pot.
So Pete, do you have any important questions or experience with cannabis?
I have plenty of experience with cannabis.
Would you enlighten us on that by speaking louder?
Yes, I use cannabis for a lot of different things. I use it for cooking. I use it to make ointments for my pain. I use it to what else do I use it for? There's many things that I use it for. I use it to cook with. I use it to medicate with. Those are the two big things that I do use it with. I think that it should be legal for everybody to use it. I've been contemplating growing for myself, and so I'm kind of wondering what the process of getting started on growing would be.
Do you have the space?
Have a little bit of space. I don't have a great big huge space, but I have enough to grow a few plants for myself.
Is it secure?
Yes.
Do you have children in the vicinity?
Yes. Not like a school, but I have children that live with me.
Right, so you're going to want to make sure the room is locked, it's not accessible. Yet you want there to be airflow as much as possible.
Ventilation.
Ventilation, yeah, you don't just want to blow the air around in the room, you want to bring in fresh air too. And then there's your growing material, your lights, your water. You want to test the water. You want to make sure the water is good.
It's like purified water, not city water.
Well, if you hopefully can use your tap water, but yeah, there's been some cases where the tap water's been so bad that folks had to.
Well, you have to, with tap or city water, you have to let it sit for a day if it has if it's straight city water, because it has different chemicals to make it pure.
I don't have city water, I have a well.
That's good.
In any case, you want to test the pH of the water,
Okay.
because
And
that's
sometimes in the summertime, the pH level in your well is high because the water is low.
and
Excuse me.
electricity to the thing, and your lights. What are we planning to do for your lighting?
I'm not sure yet. I'm really not sure what I want to do. Just, I guess, exploring my options right now.
All right. Well, you come to the right place because a lot of folks here. We have a variety of situations and setups. So whether or not you're looking at a smaller space or a larger,
Indoor, outdoor.
The basement or attic.
right. So depending on your area, excuse me, is the wattage 400 or 1,000. I think the standard, the types of bulbs that you'll be getting is pretty standard. So those are your other things, you know, when
What
folks are
about,
thinking
like,
about.
fertilizers for a plant. What's the best thing to use?
It would be pretty much the same as for, say, tomatoes. So,
like organic, edible.
yeah,
Okay.
that's what you should look at. And then you'll hopefully not have to deal with other things. Being indoor, you
I
won't
know
have
that
temperature
spider mites
fluxes.
are bad. Spider mites are bad.
Right, mites are bad. Hopefully you won't get that. If you do, then there's a couple of things that you can do. You want to stay. You want to stay on patrol. The best thing to do is to just simply wipe them off as they start. So as you keep going along, wipe them off.
Using a fresh paper, soft paper towel, or
Like a
Tissue.
moist paper towel,
Right.
wipe it, just like
Yeah.
a wipe or
I've
something.
I've heard of various things to put on, also, but each of them comes with a price tag, if you will. The more stuff you put on, the more you're going to have to rinse it
Yeah.
and all. So try to keep it that way. They like heat, so you got to find that right balance between your too hot and too cool. But that's definitely one thing, and there's an increase of them when you have that. Now, being indoor, you hopefully won't have those temperature fluxes problems
Yeah.
and associated. You'll still need to keep on the lookout for mites, for molds, and any other. I mean, there's diseases that can hit, but unless you're going out and about a lot to other people's gardens or out if was out in the farm, there's other plants that can have stuff that they don't like, or even mess with its bio. I think canola is a plant that's in the same phylum as cannabis or something to that effect. So when the canola pollen is up, there's rumors of folks' plants going hermaphrodite on a larger thing. So I don't know. I know that there's ways for the folks that have kept perfect as much as you can scenarios have still had plants either hermaphrodite on them or go male start to seed.
Yeah.
Although that typically occurs when folks have used seeds to start. So when you go from clones, you go from a female clone, and you don't shock them or do anything to upset them, it's usually female through there.
That makes sense.
So when folks are thinking about doing a garden setup, we check those four main things, the four pillars of the garden: earth, wind, fire, and water. Earth being what you're growing it in, the wind making sure you have enough ventilation, airflow, the fire being electricity or sunlight or something like that, and of course the water, which it in. Now, obviously, you want food and stuff in there. There has to be nutrients in the soil.
Yeah.
Something that's usually when you're doing indoor, certainly, because you don't unless you're planting it in the soil of your thing there, and even then, I doubt that it's not going to be replenished. You're going to want to do that. Typically, when folks are again, so you're growing indoors, and you can make a soil. You can bring them in dirt or put them in dirt. You can make a soil mixture, or you can use some hydroponic type of setup, clay balls or rock wool or something like that. The water's going in, a non-soil type, and then there's even aero and totally waterponic. We have these little setups that we call Jimmy buckets. It's a little bucket, and you put a top in it there, and then that top piece, it's got like clay balls and stuff in a little setting, and a little pump on it. So the bucket itself is like a little grow thing. Constantly cycling the water in there. Once you got the right balance of it and all, you just need to add a little bit of nutrients on a regular basis, I guess. And someone just took a plant all the way on that setup too. So that's another possibility.
Very nice.
And of course, and then getting the starts to get going. You want clones when you can, and the Mercy Center is usually a place for that. And talk with the folks here about how much space you've got. You may end up, I don't know how much room you've got, but ideally folks are going to have a place where they can have starts, babies, and it's like 24 hours light cycle, and then your veg thing where it's like, I think half and half or something like that. Although in the end it goes to complete darkness, I think. Anyway, but folks will talk to you about that. Yeah.
You need to get several books. The Growers Bible is one of them, and there's other editions that'll help you when your plants don't look well, or to make your plants keep looking good.
Okay.
It's too bad you can't be an outdoor grower.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so would using Miracle Grow on your cannabis be considered non-organic?
Yeah, I've heard,
I would
It's
think probably not good.
No, it is not
yes.
non-organic.
I don't know if it's organic, but I've heard Miracle Grow is a no-no in your growing of your cannabis plants.
I know the Miracle
Oh.
No matter
really
what
hot
it says.
fertilizer.
It's a product you'll no longer consider when growing my prized heirloom tomatoes. Oh, it's a product I will no longer consider. Oh, so Mr. Tomato Head is not using Miracle Grow
He
then.
says no go, huh?
Well, then what would you recommend, Mr. Tomato Head?
I use earth juice and a rainbow formula, and which has back guano and a few different guanos in that, and a bone meal.
Is there anything that's not off the shelf?
That's all the grocery store.
Already mixed?
Like a liquid?
Well, the
You're
earth,
talking about getting a couple things and putting it together.
yeah,
Oh.
the earth juice is a quart container of food. The rainbow mix is a bag, a 16-ounce bag that I take a tablespoon, and you would follow the directions, but you would use 4 tablespoons, and the bone meal I just put and then I watered the plant until the container is filled, and let it drain. And
Okay, well, we'll do our best to try to get this written down so folks may be able to.
You can see it on my garden.
Oh, there you go. Again, that's on Channel 23, folks, in the Salem area. And we'll post them up to YouTube. You can see them off our Mercy Center's YouTube account, which is accessible through mercycenters.org. Click on the Mercy-TV link and follow the YouTube link, and we'll show you our YouTube library. Also, our live stream library for a few items that we may not have in either one. So, what else? You're looking to get growing, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, I can think of what I want to know right now. Typically, how long are they in veg state? When you're veg.
Well, the whole process, I think, is 2 to 3 months. So, depending on your strain and other things, you're controlling your time cycle, so you're not dependent on nature. I suppose you can put it to 2 months, 2.5 months. Let's figure, just to cut the averages there. I don't know the time frame it's usually in from baby to. Again, there's probably when they change, they'll, the different ones will have different, times. But when they're flowering, when they're starting to, when they got to that point, yeah, they're ready to go. Unfortunately, it's almost impossible to sex them until that point too, which is kind of frustrating for folks to spend at least a month getting to that.
Would you like to have a patient?
I would say like, yeah. In a month time, if it's on a 2-month cycle, if it's a 2-month cycle plant, month and a half, I think about half the time would be in the getting up to that veg and then going.
She needs to have a safe place.
But double check with the experts on that.
Okay.
Yeah, there's maybe a couple other nuances.
I got her here. I can have her talk to you.
You can.
Okay. Hey, Pam, come over here, and you can talk to Ann and see what your arrangements do you make.
Hello. Hello.
So what other good news
Okay.
have you tell the people?
They have a chance to make hemp happen in America.
I am growing with somebody who is.
Hemp is a distinct variety of the plant species Cannabis sativa that contains only a trace, less than 1%, amounts of tetrahydrocannabinol, or THC, the primary psychoactive compound in cannabis. Last week, Senator Ron Wyden, Democrat, Oregon, introduced an amendment to Senate Bill 3240, the Agricultural Reform, Food and Jobs Act of 2012, requiring the federal government to respect state laws allowing the cultivation of industrial hemp, such as the one that we have in place here in Oregon. The amendment's language mimics the Industrial Hemp Farming Act of 2013, which also remains pending as a standalone legislation in both the U.S. House and Senate. 8 states have enacted statutory changes defining industrial hemp as a distinct agricultural product and seeking to allow for its regulated commercial production. So, visit mercycenters.org, follow the links to contact your U.S. representative to allow hemp in the United States. Yeah.
So, I use the stick of the plant and I play with my dog. Can I have make a dental floss for dogs?
I suppose it kind of acts in that way. They're chewing on it. It's going on there between their teeth. It's working its medical cannabis magic, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to find that dogs chewing on hemp, that hemp sticks, that fibers like that, are experiencing the same kind of things if someone was flossing them there.
How would I pursue this ambition?
That is true.
Well, talk with your veterinarian and see what if any there's issues oral hygiene wise for dogs.
Maybe we could meet and talk further.
You know that some folks, the breath wise, but that's just a you know, an emotional response for dogs that usually have
Perfect.
develop dental issues, usually in later lives or something, or have an accident of some nature. You know, there's procedures to perform on them, but as a rule, you know, dogs don't have their teeth checked and stuff like that beyond the normal veterinary visits. Well, that's something to check into. Look at that gum line and then you know, see how the cannabis applies, medical cannabis applies there too.
Okay. Okay, but thank you very much.
Well, thank you for all the information.
I hope you had a good conversation with them.
Yeah, send us an email with any more questions, or if you have some information to relative to it. There.
Okay. Perfect. Thanks so much.
Okay, good luck to you.
Yeah, see you
Take care.
later.
Poll
Have fun at
over
work.
over 90% of Americans oppose jailing marijuana possession offenders. Princeton, New Jersey. More than 9 out of 10 U.S. adults say that people who possess or consume small quantity of cannabis should not face jail time, according to a May 2013 nationwide Reason Magazine Roop poll of 1,003 adults, conducted by Princeton Survey Research Associates International. According to the poll, only 6% of respondents favor jailing convicted minor marijuana offenders. 32% of those polled favor a fine-only penalty, while 20% of respondents prefer that offenders receive substance abuse counseling. 35% of those surveyed favored no punishment whatsoever. A majority of respondents, 52%, also said that they would support the passage of federal legislation that would prevent the federal government from prosecuting people who grow, possess, or sell marijuana in states that have legalized such activities. Only 42% said that they would oppose such a law. A previous national survey conducted by the Pew Research Center in April similarly reported that most Americans favor the federal government no longer enforcing anti-marijuana laws in states that have approved its use, either medically or recreationally.
10 minutes.
So here we have an answer from Mr. Tomato Head. For tomatoes, for your organic foods, i.e. something to replace Miracle-Gro, it's the various manures available, and a little bone meal prevent blossom and rot. For cannabis, it is recommended consulting the Mercy Center's very own Growmeister. So come on down here to 1745 Capitol Street, Northeast, between noon to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, and you just might catch the Growmeister, the Mercy Growmeister here, and ask him your grow-related cannabis question. And again, that's 1475 Capitol Street, Northeast. We're on the left-hand side, just after the Jefferson cross street there, behind the Graber Insurance Building. It's a reddish brick, one-story building there. There's an alley just after that. The Graber Insurance Building is 1735 Capitol Street, by the way, if that helps you. So turn that little alley there right behind them, and Mercy Center's in the back. And there you can chat with the Growmeister, get your Oregon Cannabis connection with medical cannabis recipes, resources, and more. And generally get all kinds of information, like medical marijuana for pets in pain. And you can find out more about that and the issue in general, again, by coming here to Mercy Center, either on our Wednesday meeting, which happens here at 1745 Capitol Street every Wednesday, come down during the Monday through Friday, or catch us on TV, Channel 23, or visit us on the website at mercycenters.org. And give us a call at 503-363-4588 if you're not able to come down. But again, hit that website and we'll post, keep posting information there, like the article, the Statesman Journal article of 6/6/13, which talks about vets and pets. Vet Guru Inc. shows Dr. Douglas Kramer and his dog Mason outside his mobile surgical truck during an application of cannabis oil to the skin of Mason, who had all red. Looks like I cut it off there. Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Tomato Head. And we'll be sure to pick up that link and post it somewhere where folks can get more information on that. Of course, we can always, I think we end up setting a web page up specific to that issue on our website. As well as maybe interviewing some vets. We'll get out there, make some phone calls, and get some more stuff out there for you, the medical cannabis aficionado, concerning pets and medical cannabis. But we're just about done here. We're going to be wrapping up in a few minutes. So in closing, we want to say thanks to everybody who made this show here possible. Many thanks to CCTV for their equipment, providing this equipment, both to project us out into Channel 23, as well as our camera that we use to get the stuff out here onto the internet through live stream. Also, many thanks to our host who lets us have the meeting here in the dry warmth and relative safety. So kudos to the folks that work with us and help Mercy Center to make happen. Check us out. Come on down. We're here Monday through Friday, noon to 6. We're also available on the web, mercycenters.org. You can also give us a call, 503-363-4588 in the Salem area. Well, we're going to sign off on our video show here right quickly. We got about 2-3 minutes there left on that. Also got probably a few minutes left on the Mercy TV show being broadcast out into the Salem area through Channel 23. Be sure to come back next time. Bring a writing utensil, something to write on with. Bring somebody who may be interested in this. Certainly spread the word. Talk it up with folks. Email around. Write letters to the editor. Do all kinds of whatever it takes to help get the word out on the issue. To let your neighbors know what you know, that these things are happening. This is what's happening. And here's what you can do about it. Not just for yourself in the here and now, but in the long term and for everybody. Hopefully this IRS situation has gotten folks to wake up to the need for us to take this country back. And the medical cannabis issue shows to be one that really defines whether or not you're dealing with politicians or leaders when it comes to it. So not only check out medical cannabis for yourself or your loved one, but if you don't need it now, think of the future and make sure that the people in place aren't going to screw with it if and when your time comes. That is, assuming you don't see the cost and waste and expense to you now. But that's all we have time for now. Time to sign off and say goodbye. Thanks a lot, Mercy TV. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Folks,
Do you want to say anything before I turn it off, Glenn?
Yes, good night.
Good night, God bless you.